getting no sleep till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me.
On August 22nd, Iryna Zarutska
till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping.
On August 22nd, Iryna Zarutska was stabbed to death on the rail system in Charlotte, North Carolina, by a savage career criminal.
Her life story, I think, will be told both in the United States and Ukraine for years to come. What do you think the importance of this story is most fundamentally?
This was one of the coldest, most senseless murders I've ever seen. She had no interaction with this guy whatsoever. She was sitting minding her own business, and he just takes out a knife and just decides to stab her. I do say this with some form of just heaviness. I don't like politicizing situations like this, but it just necessitates it because there are so many dynamics at play here. Based on the information evidence we have, the attacker did say, "I got that white girl." The attacker racialized it in his own telling of this situation. And we all know this. Any honest observer of your program knows this, including Van Jones even knows this deep down, which is that, of course, if a random white person on a subway took out a knife and stabbed a black girl senselessly to death, there would be massive media coverage. There would be policy changes. There would be people having to apologize for this. We saw this in George Floyd. And yet, for whatever reason, this situation has not garnered even a fraction of that kind of outrage or backlash.
On August 20th,
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Rise of Middle America. I'm AK, your favorite guy, and tonight, two stories filled the headlines this week and have taken America by storm. First, we're going to go over the tragic death of Iryna Zarutska and what could have prevented this from happening. All right. Then we remember Charlie Kirk's life, what could have been the motive and why people loved and despised him, and put his quotes to the test. So sit back and relax as ROMA Nation starts now.
I'm hiding, I'll be so lonely. I'm hiding, I'll be so lonely.
What's going on, folks, and welcome to Rise of Middle America. We got Scrapjaw back in the house. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well.
Doing good,
And
doing good.
ironically, I have no words for what we've witnessed this week.
Same here. Same here.
I mean,
We're going to get into that.
I'm the Rantmeister, and I've been stumbling over myself ever since I heard the news. So I'm just gonna leave it at that.
No, completely understandable. I mean, I think it shocked America, and there's been a reckoning that's been happening over the past week. that nobody expected to happen. But here to talk about it, we got Donnie. How you doing?
How you doing? Thank you for having me tonight, AK. Appreciate you, Scrap Jaw. Good to see you again. I got a lot to say. I just spent the last hour really just talking a lot about some of the stuff that we've seen going on over this past week. It's been a hell of a week. So I'm ready to dive in whenever you are, sir.
Absolutely. Before we get into it, please go to riseofmiddleamerica.com and check out our lineup of podcasts from history to news, pop culture, and true crime. We have a show for all your needs. We also got a Discord where all the magic happens for ROMA Nation. If you want to be a podcast host, producer, researcher, or writer for us, it's the only place where you can be a part of the fastest growing podcast community on the net. At the top of the page are the links to our socials, and at the bottom is our merch site where you can get all the latest in Roma fashion. Also, you can also help us out by going down to the bottom of the page where there is a PayPal link where you can make a monetary contribution. Help us keep the lights on. Help us bring all this wonderful content that we've been doing. So please like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know the drill. Before we get into Charlie Kirk, let's talk about her. Let's rant. Okay, so we're opening with a deeply tragic story, the death of Iryna Zarutska, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee who was fatally stabbed in Charlotte light train last week. So she fled Ukraine in 2022 with her family seeking safety from war. She was in Charlotte, North Carolina, trying to build a new life, working, studying English, dreaming of becoming a veterinary assistant. But on August 22nd in the evening, just before 10 p.m., Iryna boarded the Lynx Blue Line and took a seat. Surveillance video shows that none of the passengers had any interaction with the man who will become her attacker. And 4 minutes into the ride, her attacker, DeCarlos Brown Jr., pulled a pocket knife from his hoodie and stabbed Iryna 3 times in the chest, including at least 1 wound in the neck. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The subject got off the train shortly after the next stop and was arrested on the platform. Let's see. This is from the New York Post. Her boyfriend shares his heartbreak, lashes out at unqualified judge who let suspect walk before the Ukraine refugee was butchered on a Charlotte train. So before we get into this, this is not the only story that's going on. It's just that we don't hear about them. Yeah. Why do you think that is, Donnie?
Well, it's quite clear, I mean, we could go cliche and just say, oh, it doesn't fit the narrative. But I mean, the reality is it highlights exactly what we on the right have been saying has been going on forever. And in order for, if they do cover this content, if they cover these news stories that are breaking in this sense, then it proves the point. And they can't have that happen. So that's why we're not hearing much about it, because frankly, it just proves what we've been saying all along.
Absolutely. Yeah, Scrap. So how does this happen? Right? How does something like this happen with someone who clearly had a checkered past?
Yeah, I mean, I changed high schools halfway through high school. And this guy has more mugshots than I have grade, school albums. What do you call? I messed it up. There was supposed to be a line.
Portraits.
School. This guy's got more mugshots than I have school portraits. How does that go? How does that play out? I think it plays out in one of the things, we're going to be dripping Charlie Kirkisms all through this until we get to him, and then it'll be on. And one of the things that he got lambasted for was his opinions on some of his statements on empathy. Well, the thing he would talk about was suicidal empathy. We give people so many reasons and excuses to not be accountable for their actions that It's cutting off our nose to spite our face, shooting ourselves in the foot. Pick a euphemism. Pick a metaphor. It needs to stop. This person's black. That's a woman. That's a trans person. This person's mentally ill. I'm not down with giving people a pass for arbitrary reasons anymore. It needs to stop. There are places where you can make those arguments, but they're few and far between. And this is where we're at now, where the media is just like, and it's not just that narrative either. A lot of it is policing and the ability for so there is an argument for like some neighborhoods, like if this wasn't on a train, say.
Right.
I've been paying attention to a lot of the policing going on in Ohio, and there's some rampant stuff that happens in some of the ghetto neighborhoods where no one cares. No one cares if the police just come and kick in some random door that maybe happens to have nobody in it, but some dude with a Ring doorbell camera on his property goats them into it and is like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Oh, we see some bullet holes in the glass. We want to kick your door in now and make sure that everyone's okay." It's like, no, you have a warrant? Go away. You guys are fools. You don't, I was watching some of these police videos. Like, okay, there's some garbage out there, but that was never reported. Point is, there was never a police report or anything in the Columbus News to say, hey, we were investigating something. It was just police moving on. And you don't hear about a lot of the stuff that happens in these neighborhoods unless it blows up. Like, we're dealing with a 67-year-old man that is filed a lawsuit against my local PD for body slamming him over a jaywalking incident.
I heard about that.
It's like the only reason you hear about these kinds of things that happen that are crime concerning, whether it's against, populations that are, what's the word for it that what left always uses? They're not capable of defending themselves. They're lesser, underprivileged, blah, blah, blah. All of that is when it's like, okay, there's nothing here. We're just going to move on. Like, it's not some big thing until it is a big thing. It's never a big thing till it is. And that's the problem. There's other systemic issues going on, but the way the left goes about it is the wrong way.
Disenfranchised.
They never actually talk about what the solution underneath of all of that is. Instead, they stay at the surface level and they give a pass. That's that suicidal empathy where we just keep giving. There was a story of a lady whose mother was murdered by a black guy that was an employee of hers. And he went to prison. She went and talked with him in prison and forgave him, gave him a job. He murdered her as well. He murdered both the mom and the daughter. And it's like, it's not about him being black. It's just like, you got a pass from the left for him being black, but that lady just had something about that.
Evil is evil. It comes in all forms.
Yeah. These are,
and I gotta say,
these lists. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I love that you brought up the Ring doorbell thing there a couple minutes ago. The way that we know about a lot of this stuff is through those Ring doorbells and just that surveillance that people are setting up in different areas. And that's why it just blows my mind that we have a guy in Canada right now that they are demanding for him to remove all of his security cameras, including his Ring doorbell, because it keeps capturing video footage of crimes happening. And they're claiming that it is an invasion of privacy for those criminals.
And not
they
just
don't want the cameras because it's exposing what's happening. It's the same thing with the body cams on cops. They don't want the body cams anymore because it's proving what we've been saying happens all along.
Good cops love body cameras. I graduated with a guy who's a canine trainer here in Ohio for this Ohio State Highway Patrol. And that's the number one thing he said. He's like, I love these body cameras because every time somebody wants to claim racism for a traffic stop, I just walk in and play the tape. And the judge looks at me and says, you're good. We're good. Yep. You're getting a ticket. You're going to jail, whatever. There's nothing there when it's all on camera.
Absolutely. And what's sad is I think Charlotte cops only get paid like $45,000 a year. Like, it's not a lot of money. So there's not a lot of incentive in that area for police officers to put their lives on the line. Even
That's
though
the word I was looking for. Disenfranchised.
Exactly. There's not a lot of incentive for them to go above and beyond, at that type of salary. Because I've always been an advocate of paying officers what they deserve, but also holding them to a higher standard at the same time. You can do both. The two things can be true at once. You can do both of those things at the same time. But so this is where it's starting to show that we're taking this for granted, and it's going down a horrible, horrible path. Another thing I want to talk about is not just his criminal history, but like talking about things like mental health, right? So mental health, and then also the judicial system, which allowed him to be freed 14 different times. Regardless of whether it's, small crimes, at some point you have to look at this person and go, okay, clearly you're not learning your lesson. Clearly you should not be a part of society right now until you get the proper help that you need. And I obviously I know that being in a 8-foot box for years on end doesn't help either, because humans are social. We have to have that social interaction in order to be in order to survive, really, mentally. But there's some people that just, quite frankly, they just don't care, and they're just going to live the life that they live, and it's because of this forgiveness, because no, it's not your fault.
Some of it is, yeah.
That 200 years ago something happened, and now it's affecting you today, when you never heard that back in the 60s. Nobody
We had
ever saw
asylums
that.
back then, didn't we, Donnie? When was the last time we had a real asylum where we took crazy people that just wanted to repetitively go out into the street and just...
We need to re-implement the asylums, because that's frankly what needs to just happen. We have so many people living on the streets right now, just causing chaos and havoc throughout society, that frankly, if they were just in an asylum where they belong, society would just be so much more peaceful.
But you'll always... This is the thing, too, is we have to remember, the poor will always be among us. The crazy people will always be there.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean we just don't do anything. I watched a YouTuber did a documentary on Detroit recently. It came out in the last couple of weeks. And he was sitting there talking with some of these officers, and they're not like your standard Detroit PD. They're an entire other wing that deals with what they call the unhomed or the unhoused, or whatever euphemism that they want to use it. They're homeless people, they're drug addicts, they're crackheads, they're prostitutes, they're all of those things, and they're open about it. Like, the guy went in with a crew. He had a couple camera guys and himself, some microphones, a big SUV, got a bunch of these 20-something-year-old dudes on the street and said, hey, you guys want to ride around, show me around Detroit and show me what it's really like?
Mm-hmm.
It's gnarly. It's gnarly. And the cops said, what do you want me to do? You want me to arrest them? They'll be right back out here turning tricks and smoking crack in no time. They don't want to be better. A lot of these people don't want to be better. So what do you do?
And the system doesn't
We got
help.
Elizabeth. No. And we got Elizabeth down in the chat saying she also thinks that the jail system needs to be reformed heavily. Most people go into jail, do their time, and a lot of them just come out worse than they were when they went. And she's right. Yeah, it does need to be reformed. Frankly, I feel like there needs to be harsher sentences.
Look, I feel attacked because I met my wife
if they're
in prison.
ever going to be let out. Hey,
I'm sorry, I feel
that
attacked.
way,
I met
but,
my wife in prison.
Okay.
No,
Feelings-
okay, seriously
I mean,
though, like
it is
seriously
what it
though,
is.
I didn't go to I live close to where the prison is that Shawshank Redemption was filmed at. That's the joke. So we
that's
we
pretty
were
cool.
actors.
That's pretty cool.
So
Hmm.
that's how my wife and I met. But Shawshank is a perfect example of a modern piece of film that exemplifies how good people or people who are in the wrong place at the wrong time, or people who are petty criminals, go in and worse things happen to them. I mean, one of the main characters of Shawshank Redemption, he was just an attorney or a paper pusher guy. He did taxes and stuff, and an accountant, right? His wife gets murdered. He ends up taking the fall for it, goes to prison, ends up doing tax fraud for the freaking the warden and all of the prison
Great
guards
movie.
and everything.
Great
And
movie.
then one of the guys that comes in, young greaser guy, who just did some petty crime, ends up being the one to overhear the thing that's going to get dude out of prison, and they murder him for it. He had nothing to do. The guards, all the corruption that happened within Shawshank is a perfect example of the kinds of things that do happen within the prison system. Not to mention when you send petty criminals to places where you have murderers and rapists and all of those things, and then they get victimized themselves. They don't deserve that, right? So what? What do we do? There's so much that I would love to put out here on YouTube, but guess what? They would probably frown upon as far as what I think you should do with a lot of the worst of the worst. But guess what? We have them, and we're paying for it. And we're not just paying for it by keeping them in prisons. We're paying for it by allowing them on the streets, even with these Soros DAs. That's the point we're getting to, is a lot of these guys are just left out, just do whatever and re-victimize society over and over.
So we all agree that this guy should have been in prison a long time ago and not let out, instead of giving 14 freaking chances
at the very least
do what he did. But I guess my biggest question is,
Andy Dufresne. Yep.
What do we think motivated him to just spontaneously start stabbing this woman out of nowhere to begin with?
He probably was just had enough of life and wanted to take his frustration out on someone else instead of taking his own life. Because sometimes people, they get into a position where they're like, you know what, screw it. I've had it. And this is when people start talking about like mass shootings and things like that. Now, as of late, it's been for different reasons, but when you didn't really hear much about that in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of gang violence and shootings, but it was called gang violence. It wasn't called mass shootings.
Yeah.
Well,
now it's considered offensive to call it gang violence. Okay.
It's gang violence.
I agree. I'm just letting you know it's considered offensive. It's just considered offensive.
Yeah, well, this is post-cancel culture, so I don't care. But
you got to find the humor wherever the hell you find it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then Elizabeth also says, not running interference for people to do bad things, but think of what you have to do in prison most of the time just to survive. Then they get out and cannot get work, so they go back to crime.
Recidivism.
Yeah.
Recidivism increases every time somebody goes to, once they're in the system, it sets them back. It sets them back. It sets them back. It sets them back. And it can be any one of us that could end up in that position.
I got an idea. What about this? As my phone keeps violently going off because everybody's like, hey, I see you on TV. No. So, how about this? What we do is any type of aggravated crimes or repeat crimes up to a certain level is automatically a felony, no matter what. But in return, misdemeanors do not go on public record.
So here's my concern with that. We have too many left-wing Democrat governors out there and politicians that are trying to get some of the most vile crimes on the books reclassified as misdemeanors.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So now you end up with a whole bunch of quote-unquote misdemeanors that, just years ago were considered heinous crimes. And now they're not documented. They're not on the books.
You mean like crimes against children that are getting reclassified and, in California where there used to be the Romeo and Juliet type of, that thing of where, you have guys and girls that are like on the line of, but they're within an age range. It's like, okay, we get it. We give them a pass, but we have laws on the books to prosecute people who are malicious in that.
I say, why don't we revert back to what everybody used to agree was crime, and we just enforce our laws?
Thank you.
And then it's not a matter of whether or not it's documented or not. We just enforce the laws and make people afraid to violate the laws again.
Yeah.
There's literally no fear to violate the law now. People don't even fear the death penalty because they know that if they're on trial and they're facing the death penalty, they've got 2 decades worth of appeals. They're still going to get to live for another 20, 30 years. So they don't even fear the death penalty anymore. We need to rein that stuff in.
That right there. And if we did, and we were on top of reforming and making our justice system actually just, where instead of it just being, oh, these people go and sit in a concrete box with a television and books and get educated over those 20 years of appeals, that we pay for, you re-victimizing society by allowing the worst of the worst to even breathe air beyond taking someone else's ability to breathe air. And if eliminate violent criminals, put all violent criminals out to pasture. And then what were we left with? We're left with theft. And theft is easy to fix because all you have to do is require that those people who are guilty of theft and fraud, defamation, those kinds of things that destroy other people's lives, you make them do things in order to repay their debts. Actually repaid, not to society. That's garbage. Society never gets, I don't see a dime from all the crime in this town. Not one. Now I'm getting repaid, but some mom that's lost her boy is out there crying now for the rest of her life because she never got to see him graduate. We're seeing murders and things in this town I'm in. What repayment does she have, knowing that her tax money is 3 hots and a cot for the murderer of her kids? If somebody who steals from you has they probably don't have the money you can take from them or take their assets and liquidate them to give to somebody if they've stolen most of the time, but put them to work, make them labor for that loss. And then allow, if I want to say, hey, okay, they might owe me, but I think that maybe I'll take a portion of a repayment so long as they do pay that back. They go and they work. I get a slice of their paycheck, if you have a felony, guess what? It follows you the rest of your life. You're not even able to repay your debts if you have them. There's so many places where we've re-victimized people who it's not just like the criminal justice system is more criminal than it is just, even to the criminals sometimes. So
what do you think about back in the 80s, 90s about the 3-strike rules?
3-strike rules, how? In what context?
So kind of like, 3 strikes you're out. So if you had pot or you had cocaine or whatnot, any type of possession, and you get arrested, you go to jail, you get out. If you have it again, you get arrested, go to jail for a much longer period of time. And then if you get out and you get caught a 3rd time, then it's life in prison.
So me personally, Don. I was a fan of that. Because that gave people something to fear. There's no fear now. When you make it completely just of no concern, you're going to turn around and just continue to commit crimes. But okay, so you do these 2 misdemeanors or not misdemeanors, but just insignificant crimes. Okay, so you got caught with possession of pot, and then you got caught with possession of cocaine. All right, I guarantee you, if they're afraid of going to prison for life for a 3rd strike, they're gonna walk a squeaky clean path.
But even if I don't want to start to get into the weeds of different types of crimes. Now we have medicinal and recreational marijuana and other things throughout the country, and that is a problem to some degree. There are bad things that come with that. That gets into the drug war thing, right? And empowering government power, and we could do we already did a thing on drug war, didn't we? We already did a whole podcast where we talked about some of these things in the past. So, but 3 strikes for me is not, necessarily life. I don't think anyone should do life in prison. I think if it's a life sentence, it should be a death sentence because it technically is.
And I agree with that. If anyone gets sentenced to life, we should go ahead and start scheduling their demise, because I don't want my tax dollars paying for someone to live in prison for the rest of their life.
And what that means is that doesn't mean we just go anything that gets you 25 to life gets you a death penalty. We have to go, okay, it's a violent crime. If you can't repay the injured party, then it's over. You can't bring someone back from the dead. If you've destroyed somebody's life to the point where they can no longer work and do life, a serious bodily injury, that kind of stuff, right? The rest of it, and I even looked these numbers up at one point. I don't know what they are now, but it's somewhere around half of all the criminals locked in prisons would be gone if we took care of violent criminals that way. We wouldn't have that debt on society.
Right. Mel, the reason why I brought this up is because back then we also had crooked cops that would plant stuff and will ruin people's lives. So I have to play I'm playing devil's advocate only just to play devil's advocate, not necessarily because I think that's true. But I think what's happened is you get a couple of stories that come out that cops will either admit or they find out that these people didn't do what they did and their lives are ruined or whatnot. So what's happened is that there is this massive overcorrection. Right. And it's like, okay, well, because of these 100 people over the course of 10 years, we now have to free everybody and start everyone on a fresh slate 15 times over. And it's like, how is that justice?
Well,
Go ahead.
But I was going to ask Donnie, what do you think should happen to people, whether it's cops or citizens, who falsely accuse or plant evidence on people and they end up going through the system?
I believe that if a citizen or a police officer is caught planting evidence in order to try to secure a conviction, that they themselves need to face that same conviction.
Yep, I'm with you. I've been saying that for a while now. And what that would do, you could get into a three strike rule. Let's go domestic violence, right? This would solve most of the issues of people staying in toxic relationships. If you're a man and you're being accused of, and say she's, stirring stuff up in the house and calling the cops on you, you're going to get away from that real quick. Why? Because on the third round of it getting a domestic or some kind of assault charge, you're going to the chair in this hypothetical situation. You're done. You're out. You're skipping town. Out. Done. You're not messing with that person. You're filing restraining orders against them if you can to keep them away from you, which is another one of those broken pieces of the system. Don't even get me started on restraining orders, because those can be abused. I'm going to go file some paperwork on this dude or this chick, and then I'm going to go show up to the grocery store where I know they are every Thursday getting groceries after work. That's how that works.
I guarantee you, if you did away with all of the loopholes, the abilities to get out of being in trouble, or ways to prolong any serious punishment, if you did away with that, people would straighten their own lives up, because people they always want to see how far they can push something. And if you put it right there, you can't push it beyond, period. They're going to straighten themselves out, because no one wants to deal with that crap. And I don't care what anybody says. Listen, if they can't get that through their head to fix themselves, then they need to be in an insane asylum. We need to bring the insane asylums back, and we need to enforce harsh punishments. No lackadaisical crap. Stop being soft on anybody. Stop being compassionate. Listen, I say it like this all the time when it comes to compassion. In order to show compassion for one person, it requires you to withdraw compassion from another, no matter what. So when you're showing compassion for this violent criminal and you want to go ahead and let them walk, you're withdrawing compassion from all of his previous and future would-be victims.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, there's another one.
So if
Vash
you want
is
to be
actually
compassionate, you got to pick and choose where you put it. You got to pick and choose where you put your compassion. And I'm sorry, no compassion should go to criminals.
yeah, and I understand that there are insinuating circumstances, like a 16-year-old kid doesn't have a place to live, goes into a convenience store, grabs a candy bar, and goes. That's what judges are for. Judges are supposed to see that and be like, okay, I get it. I'm going to let you go off with a warning. Here's your, 60-day probation. Let's find you a way to get you into a better position, right? Because that's also missing out of the judicial system. Is how do we help these people get out and get back into society, right? Because when we take away 3, 4, right? Because if you take away 3, 4, 5 years of your life, you don't really have a life to go back to when you come out. Hell, you could be gone for 60 days and your entire life will be upside down.
What about, have you ever watched Judge Fleischer out of Texas? Some of his clips. He wears the bow tie and the nice
he just passed away.
He passed away. Yeah, last month.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That hurts my soul.
Yeah.
He was such a good. He was so good. And it was just like probable cause judge, right? He just sit there and question. Okay, what happened here? I've seen you multiple times. You're still messing up. Come on, guy. I've given you enough chances. You're done. Or cops, you're not doing your job right. Get with it. He was ruthless when he had to be, but he was very compassionate when it was necessary, when he knew he had some young dude that was caught up in something. And it's like, guy, you've got this going for you over here. Why are you still on this junk that you're messing with? I'm going to give you this amount of time because I want you to wake up to this. And now he's gone. Those are judges that we need. We need people that can balance that out.
But now I don't want to take too much away from Iryna because this is who we're talking about, right? But there's nothing that's going to bring her back. So what I think what's happening here is that a lot of these policies that are being put in place right now, they don't just have a black eye. Like it's in a coma right now. And there's only going to be so many times that this stuff can happen before people start taking things into their own hands, and you don't want that to happen. That's where there's no coming back, right? And then we end up, 2-3 years down the road having this horrible time in American history, which technically we're still in it, but or it's like, well, what could have prevented these things from happening? And it's actually fairly simple, especially like 1 or 2 times, okay, but 14 times,
yeah.
It used to be a rarity when we'd seen, with one of the things I think about when I think of these types of situations is guys like what's his name, Gary Plouch. The guy in the 80s who's 11-year-old. My son's 11. Gary Plouch's son was abused and murdered. And the guy and Gary was like, no, I'm not letting this guy live. And this isn't an endorsement of it, but the cops even knew who he was. They're like, Gary, no. But guess what? He went in front of
you can find that video online.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He went in front of a grand jury and they were not going to convict him. They were like, no.
Mm-mm.
Why? Why did they not convict him? Because they knew the heinousness of what happened to his own son. But we have judges and we have a society that we have grand juries now that are refusing to indict people for crimes right now in places like California over immigration, not just because they're immigrants. They're saying, no, we don't care if they're criminals in the street. We think you're victimizing them. They come from a worse place than here. Even if they are criminals, like that's the thing we were talking about earlier. Yeah. So
why do you think so many criminals are drawn to left-leaning cities? Because they know that they will be able to do anything they want to and find themselves in front of a left-leaning judge that will let them off.
Exactly. Until they do something to where they can't get out. And then it's like, now it's a tragedy.
And I think the only thing that is going to begin to turn that tide back is what Trump's doing now is with this train stabbing incident, is because it was on a public transit, the Department of Transportation has jurisdiction, and causing loss of life on public transit is it's on federal like controlled, even though it's maintained by the locality, it's federal control and DOT, so they can get into that. And there are a lot of places where the federal government can do that kind of thing. If it's we're going to talk about Charlie some night, if it's on campuses, if it's in schools, anywhere where there's federally regulated stuff, or there's where it's like some kind of terrorist type thing. And we're getting really close to designating these kinds of political attacks as terrorist actions, so the train thing is not, that's a societal issue that is not necessarily terrorism, but the Charlie Kirk thing, some of these school shootings, those are getting, most of us would be like, yeah, that's domestic terrorism because of what's being written on the firearms, in the manifestos. That stuff, if these localities don't prosecute those crimes, the feds have every ability to get in there, and they're going to have to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what are things that we can do to prevent this? So mental health interventions and monitoring, but you still have the problem where there's client-doctor privilege, and what does that do for rights?
Just lock the criminals up and keep them locked up.
Yeah, and you separate
them out. That solves it.
Separate them out. If they're just crazy people, for crazy people's sake, just put them in a crazy house. Like we used to have those.
Is it?
If they're just hard stone cold criminals, deal with them. If they're just thieves of various degree, make them work it off. But we have to do something that's proportionate for each of these. And right now, there's no proportion. It's just it's borderline wild west in many places. Luckily, many of us are in. Most of us in this country, the middle of America, is in mostly rural suburban areas, and we catch the bleed over. But we work and we deal with, and we're in metropolitan areas a lot. So we get caught in the crossfire, not knowing, hey, I got to go take a train here or there. I got to go take a flight and go through this place and grab an Uber and maybe stop here. And unless you know somebody that's from these areas and you can get through them, you put yourself at risk. So what can we do? Keep your head on a swivel. Stay strapped where you can. Second Amendment. Know what states have reciprocity. Live in a way that you're prepared for a bad situation, but don't be paranoid. We can't live paranoid. Can't do that. And raise your kids right.
Absolutely.
How many dads out there and parents, moms and whatnot would probably be a little bit rougher on their kids in the right ways if they knew that if they got out on the street doing some of the crap that these kids on the street do now, they'd end up in an electric chair doing 25 to life, in the actual law would be laid down. That used to be a thing. Now it's not.
Exactly. That was Roma's Ranks. All right. Let's go ahead and get into this.
Before we get into it, we got Funkmaster General with Super Chat, $20. Good evening, nation.
What's going on, Funkmaster General?
Good evening.
How you doing, my man?
Hey, Roma,
what's up?
Roma, do me a favor. Check your private chat real quick.
Private chat. Oh, yeah. Gotcha. All right. So, obviously, everybody's been talking about this the entire week, right? I remember I was working and I was getting done with my last job, and I got about 6 text messages, 15 messages on Discord, about 30 messages on X and just countless messages on Facebook. And my phone nearly died because of it. And I didn't know what was going on. So I just clicked the first one I saw, and there it was. There's that, Charlie Kirk was shot. And at first I was kind of confused, right? Because I was like, who would do that? Like, not everybody knows who he is. I mean, people in the political sphere, we know who he is, but not everybody. I mean, most people would see him, but if they saw him out in the streets, they probably wouldn't. They wouldn't be able to put a face to the name or name to the face or whatnot. So then I decided to go over into X, and as soon as I hit X, I saw one of the most gruesome things I'd ever seen.
Yep.
And time almost stopped for me. Because I was still trying to comprehend the messages that I saw, and then seeing that literally as the first thing that popped up on my X. I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. And I knew that when it happened, like as soon as it happened, and as soon as I saw it, I knew he was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So I want to, before I get into all of that, I want to go ahead and talk about, who he was. And like I said earlier, why did people love him? Why did people hate him? Why did people, have these mixed emotions about him? So let's go ahead and start with, let's see what Wiki has to say, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be wild.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Charles James Kirk, I love that. I absolutely love that. His middle and last name. Was an American conservative political commentator, author, media personality. He co-founded organization Turning Point USA, or TPUSA, in 2012 and was executive director. He was the chief executive officer of Turning Point Action and a member of the Council of National Policy, or CNP. In his later years, he was one of the most prominent voices in the populist MAGA movement and exemplified the growth of Christian nationalism in the Republican Party. Kirk was born and raised in Chicago suburbs of Arlington Heights and Prospect Heights, Illinois. In high school, Kirk actively engaged in politics and supporting Republican candidate Mark Kirk and U.S. Senate campaign. He briefly attended Harper College before dropping out to pursue political activism full-time, influenced by the Tea Party member Bill Montgomery. 2012, Kirk followed TPUSA, a conservative student organization that quickly grew to the backing of donors like Foster Fruits.
I made a face there because they slid the Christian nationalism thing in there. He was not Christian nationalist.
No.
I mean, at least they're not still labeling him as a white supremacist and stuff. Because they were labeling him as that on Wikipedia for a while.
They probably removed that after he did something with TPUSA in DC at one point. It was like some Young Black Leaders Summit or something like that. And one of the guys from that recently posted a video. Like, anybody who's met Charlie Kirk, that's anybody. And if you're nobody, they're like, man, the things that they're saying are wildly beyond what the left is saying about Charlie Kirk. The misrepresentation and the misinformation, the disinformation that they're injecting into this, like calling him a Christian nationalist. He's not. He's closer to like your mainline evangelical, whatever. Charlie Kirk was like, if you've ever heard Ray Comfort do evangelism, he's one of the first well-known guys that got out on the street and he would ask a handful of simple questions and end up going right to the heart of the gospel, and then addressing whatever the issue was with this person, and then making a very good, compelling argument to them in a very respectful way. And what Charlie Kirk did was he took that part of his faith and that influence of Ray Comfort and applied it to his political evangelism, if you will. But he was very good about keeping his politics and his faith stuff not separate, but in context, where a lot of people will either do their politics and use, their religious affiliations as kind of like that in or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, I'm that too. Or they'll try to justify their poor understanding of theology within there. They'll do the conflation both ways. He had this really good way of keeping them both in context to one another and explaining why he believed what he did and why he stood on certain principles, and was able to explain the Bible in those contexts. I don't always agree with every little nuance of it, but I was like, man, this guy's doing a better job than most televangelist preachers that are out there in being genuine about it and not going fisticuffs with people. People were trying to get him to fight all the time. Like one old guy was like, come on, let's do a gentleman's duel or something. He was
I remember that.
What's that going to solve? Nothing. You're just seeding the fact that you don't know how to debate and have a conversation because you want to get violent about it.
Exactly. You're seeding the fact that your ideas can't defeat his, and so you want to try to defeat him some other way.
Well,
what was that comment about Christian nationalism that was up there? I saw it go by. I wanted to read that.
Here.
You don't even understand that Christian nationalism is not bad. The whole system of governance that created the modern world, Christian nationalism, was the creation of America for the first time. No, if you go research the etymology or the first time that term is used, it's actually used by Christian socialists in history. What has happened is there are a group of pseudo-reformed Christian groups that have taken this. It's like a Reconstructionist Dominion type theology, kind of like where they want to do like, they want to take over culture instead of how most Christian groups are within culture. And they're just like, hey, we're Christians, we're living our lives, and we are preaching to everybody, whether or not we're in government or not. We're going to speak to government, but the government's the government, the church is the church, and the family's the family. Those three realms of governance have always existed. The Christian nationalists are different in that now they have co-opted that old term, and they want to they do want to take over government, but that's never worked out well in history. We could go on a whole other rant. This will be scrap rants in a hot second if I go down that route. But Charlie Kirk was not that. He was not that.
That's one thing I would say. One of the biggest issues that we have with debating ideas nowadays is that nobody agrees on the language that's being used. And so, it's excellent that you're going to sit there and give us a breakdown of the etymology of the original use of Christian nationalism. The problem is that so many other people don't know that history. They don't know the etymology, and they know it as it is used today. And in order to be able to win arguments in that sense, we have to all be using the same language and the same definitions of the words that we're using.
Right.
So
sometimes they change culturally, and sometimes they do change culturally, and you have to just accept, okay, well, that word doesn't work that way anymore, and that's okay. But when they straw man you and they strong arm a definition, an arbitrary definition, like you're saying, and then definitions degrade, and now we're no longer having the same conversation.
And speaking of hijacking, and you also hijack the media platforms that everybody is looking at, then that's where you have that issue, because now you've created a small echo chamber is now turned into a giant echo chamber.
Yes. Yes.
And all of a sudden now you start using words that you've never used before, and you can't figure out why you're using them. Yeah. I've had to catch myself a couple of times.
Oh, our modern lexicon is so full of socialist terminology. When they say my democracy or our democracy or even our, it's a very socialist communist thing, and it's gotten smuggled in. Yeah, rules for radicals, Saul Alinsky. A a lot of this terminology is smuggled in so that way they can use it amongst themselves. And I say they, meaning like people that are the thought leaders and the smugglers of these socialist ideals into society, so that way they sound like everybody else, and we go, oh yeah, they're patriots, they believe in democracy, I'm in democracy, I vote. But what people don't realize is that you vote in a democratic process that's a part of a republic where you elect your representatives to go represent you at various
Representative
stages.
democracy instead
Representative
of a
democracy.
constitutional republic.
Yes.
I think Michael Knowles put it best when he says, when they say my democracy, what they really mean is their oligarchy.
Yeah, they're oligarchy. And that's what it is. Like, so Soviet, the term Soviet just means a council.
Exactly.
You know, so it's very similar in that way of, it's like a council of who's who, it's in the know, and it's not you. You know, when I think when George Carlin made that comment about it's a big old club and you're not in it,
Mm-hmm.
that's what he was talking about. You know, was
Yes.
that kind of thing. And Charlie was very good at even drawing those lines and coming in and saying, you know, this is what our government is. This is what our government isn't. This is what it's founded on. This is where our principles that crafted our founding documents are about, and how we got here. And one of the things he said that caught me off guard, I've been catching up on Charlie Kirk. I've been sleeping on this guy. I'm just going to say it. I've been sleeping on this guy. And recently, one of the things that I saw him say in a clip was, we have a Christian form of government without a Christian culture, and the two are incompatible.
Absolutely.
That's why
100%.
people are able to exploit the system, because it's meant for people that aren't going to go out of their way to exploit it. You have liberties. Was it John Locke said something about true liberty is the freedom to do what's right, not to commit chaos and do whatever you want. That's what true liberty is. You know?
What liberty is or freedom is you have the freedom to do what you ought, not what you want.
Mm-hmm. So that's what's upside down. Rights have responsibilities. There's a mirror.
Yes.
So
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
And Biddy says, I love the way Charlie sometimes take a breath and think for a second before he responds or continues with his debate. He is taking in all information being told him. Not only that, but the only thing that you see online are all of the heated debates that he's had. But out of every one heated debate, there are like 10 debates that he has during that time frame of people actually asking him genuine questions, and he's responding in a genuine way.
Yes.
They don't see that part.
Yes.
They only see the big extreme blow-ups of somebody that or someone that doesn't understand how to get their words out correctly. And the thing is, he will never make fun of you.
Mm-mm.
He would actually help you. Like, is this the word you're looking for? There you go. All right. Go ahead and continue. Right.
That's what I loved about him. And I'd press anybody to present to me a debate that he didn't win at the same time. And the thing that I loved about him was that, yes, just that. He was so genuine and he was caring. He was willing to bring anybody up to the mic to have a conversation with, not just a mic, anywhere. He just wanted to talk. He just wanted to talk. And he would engage in a discussion with anybody and debate those topics. And even whenever he would furiously enrage his opponent to the point that the person would storm off, flipping him off and calling him a name, he'd still say, God bless you. I love you. I hope you find God.
Absolutely.
That's the way he would end his discussions. And I love, and just like Scrapjaw said, yeah, okay, I wouldn't say that I was sleeping on him. Reality is no, I didn't really watch a lot of Charlie Kirk. I knew who Charlie Kirk was. I saw his stuff. I knew what he was doing. I knew what he brought to the table. But I didn't tune into his show every day because, he would bring a lot of scripture and a lot of religion into his topics because that's where his morals were rooted. And I respected the hell out of him for that. However, whenever I'm looking for political content, I'm looking for more controversy and not so much religion thrown into it. So no, I wasn't a huge follower of Charlie, but at the same time, I knew who the hell he was, and I respected the hell out of him, and I appreciated him being a part of a conservative movement, because we need people that are going to be able to reach, because not everybody gets reached the same way. And the certain people he was able to reach were not necessarily the same type of people that other conservative commentators were able to reach. So Scrapjaw, it's perfectly fine that you slept on him, right? But at the same time, we've got to admit, this man, he really truly was the epitome of conservatism. He not just talked the talk, but he actually walked the freaking walk. And he fully embodied everything that conservatives such as myself would espouse for. But yet, I'm not as virtuous as that man was, and I never will be. He was everything that I wanted to aspire people to be, but knew that I could never be myself.
Yeah, and they did it in a
Charlie.
span of 10 years from
Yes.
like, if you want to say like about from 21 to 31, I've been watching this culture war for 20 years, almost. Well, probably that 10 years. It was a slow drip in the first few years out of high school, but then 10 years ago, right about, just right a little bit after the time I got married, it slammed me in the face, and I was like, now I got to pay attention. And in that time frame, Charlie went from what? Basically, was he? Didn't he drop out of high school or whatever?
Yes.
Or
No,
college?
he
No, he's a
college.
college dropout.
Yes.
To being this massive force of, and he attributes all of it to his faith. 100%. God changed his life.
And I
it
think
shows.
the whole reason that he was the target that he was, in my opinion, is because he really truly was a major threat. He had a way of reaching the youth that no one has ever been able to do. And effectively, the way he was reaching the youth, he was setting the stage to establish conservative rule for at least the next 30 to 40 years. He capitalized on Gen Z. He dominated Gen Alpha. He was amazing in that sense. But then at the same time, he was drawing people to Christ. And these are all the things that the left had spent decades trying to dismantle. And he was bringing them all together. So he was a massive, major threat because he actually meant all of it.
Mm-hmm. It's why, so many people didn't know who he even was, because I think he lived by that scripture where I think Paul writes and says, live in a way that you can't even be accused of doing wrong. That way, when people do come to accuse you, there's nothing. They have no words, right?
Right.
And what happened? Every time someone came to try to confront him and can accuse him of something, it was right there to throw right back at him. But he was the kind of person that could call them out, call them on the carpet, without being like how most of us are who are here in the meme war, right? Just dunking on people. He didn't dunk on people. He let them trap themselves in the twisting of their own, broken logic and broken understanding. And then he showed them a better way.
Yes.
And he would call them to a better way of it.
We've got Isaac down in the chat saying he was the ideal American that a God-fearing man could aspire to. And absolutely. One comparison that I've been liking to use over these past few days is, back in the 60s, America absolutely loved JFK and RFK. Why? Because at the time, they didn't know about all the debauchery that was going on behind the scenes. They saw them at surface level.
Same with MLK.
At surface level, they had so much promise for what America could be, and Americans loved them for that. And that's why they had to go, because they were a threat.
Yeah.
Charlie was exactly what America thought JFK and RFK were without the debauchery. Like I said, he didn't just talk the talk. He truly walked the walk, and he truly had that virtue that most of us could only ever dream of having. It was a massive threat.
And it's funny because Scrap, you just got into him. I know, Donnie, you've been watching him for a while. I saw him on and off for the last about 8 to 9 years, right? And I remember the first time I saw him, I was like, who is this balloon-headed, like, guy that thinks he knows everything? And like, it was, I don't know why that was, my first reaction, right? But there was a day, and I remember this was summer, during COVID. And I remember this is when, what are they called? What are the things on Facebook? On Facebook as well, but also on Instagram and on
Reels.
Reels. There was one where it was like 10 reels in a row of him talking to different people, and whatever reel it was all of the ones in which he wasn't necessarily trying to prove someone wrong, but he was trying to make them understand that, I am not your enemy, right? My job here is to give you a better understanding from my perspective.
Yes.
And once I saw that, I was like, okay, subscribe. Right. And I subscribed to him. I'm not saying that I watched him religiously, because I didn't. I still didn't all the way up to this week. But at least I knew who he was. I knew that he was at least going to be somewhere in my algorithm every once in a while.
In those videos, what he would do that I loved seeing him do is he would take the person's argument and then he would slow walk them through their own argument logically until they saw the fallacy in their argument. He wouldn't necessarily point it out to them. He would let them discover it themselves. And it was just brilliant the way that he did it. And frankly, over on TikTok, his videos were some of the most popular videos in the algorithm. He was up there. He was up there in the most liked videos across the platform. Once again, a reason why he was a major threat.
That's the stuff that comes out of Ray Comfort's evangelism. Being able to walk somebody through and not just try to drive home the position or the platform or the talking point, the conservative position or the Christian position, whatever it was. It was engaging with where the person was at the level they were, and then understanding their position first, and like you said, walking back through it, because he would go, oh, that's where they're at, they're lost, let's walk back this way.
Yes.
And so many people would resist, like, no, I don't want to go back that way, but some of them did. And there are many people that now credit Charlie Kirk with their newfound Christian faith, turning them from the political side they were on, showing them the error of their ways, and without being a jerk about it, without being there were many times he would call people out, but like I said, he wasn't crass and brash,
no,
like so many are, which I think is a flaw of MAGA and a lot of conservatives. Even though they're right, their position is right, their posture is wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
This is the key that Charlie is giving all of us to unlock an introspective moment, not just to expose how ugly the far left is, but to help us expose the flaws in our own, our own way that we go about engaging with people that disagree with us, that aren't necessarily totally lost, but we might drive them away with the way that we, show these positions. They, whether it's abortion or if it's homosexuality or whatever those things are, or our faith and all of that. If we do it the wrong way, we're going to push them away, and we should let them push themselves away instead of us doing it for them. And that's what Charlie was good at.
And that's the thing is you have all these left wingers out there that call him a bigot and a sexist and a homophobe and all these other things because he would speak out against those sins. But I just want to remind everybody, what I've always picked up from him is he truly, I saw someone put it in there, he cared about everybody. Yes, he truly loved everybody, because as scripture teaches us, you hate the sin, not the sinner. And that's what he pushed, is he promoted the hatred of sin, but not of the sinner. And he just wanted to call everybody to Christ. It was amazing. And I love that now his wife is everyone live.
You just went underwater, brother.
Yeah. I think we lost your sound.
Oh no.
There
you are. You're back.
Oh,
You're back.
I said I love that Erica, she went live tonight, and she basically made the promise. She said she's promising to continue his mission to make heaven crowded, and that touched me like something like nothing else. And so,
I think it touched everybody.
Yeah.
I didn't think she would come out this soon, but she did.
Yeah.
And she knew she had to.
Yeah.
You know, and I give her great respect, especially after what she had witnessed. You know, and so going to your point, Donnie, about how they misconstrue certain things that he said, or I don't even know, because some of these quotes that I've seen online, because we're gonna get to a very particular group of people that just basically sealed their fate on the online communities, with the awful things that they said about this.
Yes.
And I haven't talked to anybody about it. I've watched it. I've seen people message underneath my posts and say some god awful things that, you know, I'm telling you right now, what goes around comes around. And I'm not talking about with what happened to Charlie, but as far as socially,
the social ramifications are going to be real.
yes.
And that's not an endorsement. And I don't want to undercut and do harm to what we just said about Charlie. But I do want to recognize that there are people that are going to do that by their actions because they're still going to be angry.
Yes.
People are going to be. There are people that are on. I don't want to do the both sides thing because that's what the left likes to do, to absolve themselves of their political rhetoric. But there are still going to be people that we know that are like right now. There's a guy his whole mission right now is to go find as many of these people online that are saying these things and send emails to their employers. And he's got 15 of 300 confirmed firings right now. And I don't necessarily think that's right. Now, if you're like a teacher or you're somebody that's in a position of like, I'm entrusting my children with you, yeah, I might make some complaints to the school because that's an ethics issue. But if you work at a local restaurant, I'm not calling Texas Roadhouse to say that you said bad things on the internet and made me mad because we disagree over Charlie Kirk. I might not hang out with you anymore. Might not call you. Might delete your phone out of my phone, you know. But I'm not going to call your employer unless you're somebody in some important position of power, like a nurse. Right. If you're an anesthesiologist, you better not be saying you wish somebody dead because you have the power to make people dead. And I don't want to end up on your table and you go, oh, that guy's got a red, white, and blue tat on his arm. He's probably a patriot. You know, I don't want to die in that situation and be like, oops, he went in cardiac. He couldn't handle it. And just, you know, bad. I don't want that. You can't trust people who wish death on others in that way. Like, you just can't do it. So anyway.
Absolutely. But yeah, so I figured that tonight I'm going to put this to the test.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, because there are a lot of things that people are saying online, and they're even making memes about it. And what he has said. All right, so let's start up here at the top. Okay, so gay people should be stoned to death. What do you think the over/under is on this one?
He was quoting scripture.
You think so?
That's a Leviticus thing that he was asked about. And
let's find out.
Is in Leviticus 18 is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Just saying. So, Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matter. Is in Leviticus 8.
Okay, so what it looks like here is that she's quoting something about what, like respect, like that thou shalt love thy neighbor
as thyself, Right, because no
As
one ever hated
thyself.
his own flesh, right? To quote other scripture.
Right. So what he's doing here is he's trying to make a comparison between two different scriptures, right? Or two different parts of the scripture that's pretty close together.
He's giving
And-
the full context.
Yeah, he's giving
Just-
context here.
Exactly.
This context matters. It's not his own words. He's quoting the Bible.
Yes. The only way that they ever seem to be able to defeat him is to take him out of context, because in context it always disproves their argument.
Absolutely. So you're 0 for 1. All right, next. Most people are scared when they see a black pilot flying a plane.
Now, that is in relation to affirmative action and DEI. Frankly, it's an argument that I agree with. What Clarence Thomas himself, the greatest Supreme Court justice of my freaking lifetime, has stated that he always has to question whether or not he got the position simply because of his skin versus his actual qualifications.
But
And
Clarence
it is-
Thomas is a bang up judge, bro. He's
Yes.
awesome.
He's my most favorite Supreme Court justice that there is. And frankly, every minority, they are robbed of being able to have their own sense of pride and their own accomplishments, because they forever have to ask themselves, were they given this position simply because of the color of their skin?
And because they think that I'm not good enough.
Yes. And at the same time, people have to, when they go to get on a plane and you're looking at the pilot, knowing that we have these woke airlines that were just promoting people to meet that diversity quota, you have to unfortunately ask yourself that question. Would this person have met the standards if the company wasn't implementing DEI?
They tried to do that in Dayton, Ohio, years ago, and lowering the standards for police officers to pass academy and to get to. And we said no, you can't do that. I think that even it might have went up to Ohio Supreme Court about it, and we were like, no, you can't do that. That you're gonna if you can't pass if you can't pass, you can't pass. We don't want dumb officers.
Yeah, it's a line for everybody. Right? It's not a line for, oh, well, this race is here and this race is there and this one. No, this is the standard all across the board. It's the same thing when it came to firefighters and women.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when there were, I think there was a story where there was a woman who was passed because they lowered the standard, and on her second job, she broke her ankle.
There was an LA one too. There's a whole fire department in LA that's like, and during the fires, they were like inept. They were unable to actually perform during the big fires. It's the soft bigotry of low expectations. That's what it is. That's what we call it.
Exactly.
And the left is not aware that when you dumb it down for anybody based on that, you're effectively taking the position. I mean, how many memes did we all see where didn't Babylon B do some little sketches on this where they had like leftist and white supremacists sitting next to each other and the things they were saying? And it was like, oh, I mean, you wonder why guys like David Duke went back to voting for the Democrats.
Let's hear the clip.
Most people are scared when they see a black pilot flying a plane.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
And that's why I think.
And notice he said the guy with the square jaw, not scrap jaw.
Yes. And where is it? Oh, there it is. Funk Master General coming back in with the flex. Gifted 5 ROMA Nation memberships. Thank you so much.
Nice. Very well done.
Well done.
I appreciate Charlie saying the thing that we all want to say, which is, I don't want to sound racist, but the left has been doing this thing to us and creating this issue, and I have no other choice but to now. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. DEI is a self-fulfilling prophecy. I've been saying it to my lefty friends that are no longer, friends of mine. Because I was like, dude, you guys don't stop doing this, you're going to create actual white supremacists. And what do we have? It's
exactly. Next. Yes, next. All right. Next is Taylor Swift should reject feminism and submit to her husband.
Okay.
But maybe one of the reasons why Taylor Swift has been so just kind of annoyingly liberal over the last couple of years is that she's not yet married and she doesn't have children. I say this non-sarcastically. I say this as a husband and a father. Having children changes you. Getting married changes you. And I hope that America's biggest pop star marrying the pharmaceutical spokesperson ends up conservatizing them. Taylor Swift might de-radicalize herself. She might come back down to reality. I want them to have lots of children. It teaches you something about yourself. Deep down, I think Taylor Swift actually was raised as a conservative that has gotten kind of caught up in this metropolitan liberal stuff, and she doesn't quite have an attachment to the conservative backbone that she was raised in, but this might reattach her in the best possible way. And I'm not saying this sarcastically. I've seen this happen time and time again. When people start to get married and have children, it starts to change your politics.
Yes.
I'm going to stop it there. Okay.
100%. 100%.
Having children isn't radical.
Nope.
Fight me.
It's natural. I'm sorry.
My wife just bought me this shirt. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Scrapjaw, but I have to tell you, though, that my dad already holds that title.
Fight me.
Well, my dad will fight your dad.
My dad will fight your dad. Look, his dad's, but he's had the law on him. I'm sure he could whip both our dads. His dad could whip both our dads, I bet.
Yeah, my dad,
you know what?
My dad's pretty. No, well, not now. My dad. Yeah. Anyways.
In the prime. Yeah,
in his prime. I mean, you probably beat mine. Mine's been dead and gone now about 7 years. So you already got that one licked.
No.
Wow, but, that is a super awful burn. You said your dad could beat my dad, and your dad's dead. How bad does my dad have to be at fighting to be beat by a dead guy? Ow.
Elizabeth, he says, my dad would tell your dad to go fly a kite.
Yeah, no.
That's hilarious.
Being a dad it is different. I was running around playing in bands. I still have the remnants of these are my participation trophies of my band days right here. Okay.
Me too.
We've got them. So
mine are all upstairs.
There you go.
Dust.
But it's one of those things. Like, I was still playing in bands through quite a bit of the first part of my marriage, and when my kids started getting born, I started noticing that it was the tension. It was tearing me, keeping me away from being available in all of the wrong ways. So it does change you.
Absolutely,
and that's another example of Charlie wanting the best for somebody.
Yeah, because I can imagine. I mean, I was before I had my son, I was out till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, like hanging out with some good people and with some bad people, right? And once I learned that my girlfriend, then now wife, was pregnant with my son. I remember she was 8 months pregnant, and I sat outside. I was smoking a cigarette, and she was like, "Why are you sitting out here by yourself?" And it was because I had realized that I was a month away from my life changing forever. And I was not in the position that I wanted to be in. And so I realized that I had to make some mental changes up here in order to be able to take care of this child. Right. And then, of course, 12 years, two children later, and finally the house that we bought, I made the changes that I needed to do to make that possible. But you have to be real with yourself, because a lot of people, that's their problem, is that they're not real with themselves. They think they live in this fantasy world, or in this like they're constantly in a TV show starring themselves, and they think they can just get through life like that, and that's definitely not the case. So I'm not saying that you have to be conservative. What I'm saying is, when you have children, there are certain things that you are forced to change in order to keep these children alive.
I mean, what I would say is, I used to be a touring musician. I did that whole thing. I did a lot of different things in my life, but I didn't truly learn who I was until I became a dad. And that's when my true identity was established. Yeah, I sit here in front of this whole setup where I got like some looks, and yeah, I play around online and I bitch about shit on the internet. Absolutely, I do that. But I'm a dad first. That's what I am. And that's what I do. Anytime anybody asks me about who I am, I'm a dad. That's what I am. I'm a dad. I got 3 kids. Wouldn't want it any other way. Dad
Absolutely.
first.
All right. So where are we at right now? So I'm gonna kind of fly through this because we're getting up against it.
We're running long.
Yeah, we're running long, but I'll get you out of here. Absolutely. All right. So the next one is, let's see which one I did. Not that one. Not that one. Some of these were stupid that I didn't even waste my time on them. It was one about
MLK Jr. was an awful person. Let's go there. That sounds like a spicy one.
I actually looked it up. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find anything on us. I mean, I looked everywhere. I'm not saying it happened or it didn't happen, so I'm just going to leave that neutral.
Fair enough.
All right. So we'll just leave it at that. One of these was about Nancy Pelosi and about her.
Oh, bailing out the guy.
Oh, bailing out the guy, right?
Yeah.
So let's go with that. And oops, sorry, wrong one. And see what he said.
Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly? And why is he still in jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet his bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out. Of course you should reject any link.
Well, the sarcasm dripping off of what he's saying right there is so palpable. This is why the left can't meme. They have no context of how sarcastic he's being right now, because he's contrasting what the left does with all of their riffraff, and they just go bail them out, and they have GoFundMe's at the drop of a hat. So
yes,
yeah.
Next one is multiple black politicians stole white people's spots.
Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Play cut 52.
But I rise today as a clear recipient of affirmative action, particularly in higher education. I may have been admitted on affirmative action, both in terms of being a woman and a woman of color, but I can declare that I did not graduate on affirmative action. This is my personal story.
Oh, I do declare.
I mean,
So he's
if
quoting.
you're going to admit it,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, if she's going to admit it, let her admit it.
Exactly, but they're
How does
saying
she even know that she graduated on her own merits if she didn't get there on her own merits? How can you know?
but the point here is that she said it. He was quoting her. Simple as that, right? So, like, I mean, this is looking grim because this is like 0 for 5 right now, or 0 for 6. I couldn't find the one on the MLK Jr. I couldn't find the one on the vaccine requirements or medical apartheid, even though he probably did say that, but had some other context that was with it. And then the last one I want to go over is the gun deaths are acceptable in order to have a Second Amendment.
This is the one that they keep using as a flex on him, but it's so thin and it's not the flex they think it is.
It really isn't. And let's check it out.
So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to 0. It will not happen. You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home, by having more armed guards in front of schools. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights.
Context.
Once again, every time you put things in context, the argument against them falls apart. Every time.
Exactly. And speaking of let's talk about some key statistics here, because you want to talk about getting those wrong. Holy crap. So this is back from 2023. Total gun deaths in the country, 46,728. All right. Yes, that's a lot. But that's gun deaths. That's not, unalivings or whatnot of other people. All right.
Yeah, that's a lot of self-inflicted stuff.
Yes.
Exactly. So here with self-deletion, you're talking a record of 27,300. That's what, 60%?
And then, remove the amount of gun deaths that are from police officers. And
463. No, I'm sorry. It was 604. Unintentional deaths, 463. And then, of course, the homicides were 17,927. So.
But let's also never forget how many lives were saved in comparison due to using the same tool.
So that number is wide because of different scenarios, different conversations. But I think what I saw was somewhere between 50,000 and 250,000.
And then think we have almost 400 million people in our country that are citizens. I believe it's our citizen population.
It's like 350.
330. I thought it was like 330.
Okay, so the number might be a little inflated if they're counting other people that aren't necessarily citizens. We have over or close to half of all of the firearms in the world in private ownership. And yet, what was the most generous number of gun-related deaths that we had there, AK, in your stat?
And that was the total deaths or the
total. Just total. Let's just do it.
46,700.
46,000. That's so 1,000 has 1 comma and 3 zeros. Millions get into the 6 figures, 7, 8, 9 figures. Okay, that's 9 digits versus 4 digits. That's magnitudes difference, population to the amount of people who have died because of this thing. There are other things that people die from way more often.
I'm doing the math right now. 46,728 divided by 340.
And it even gets worse when you start to break down the demographic of where they are.
Hold on.
Where these gun deaths are.
You want to know what percentage that is of America?
0.0001337.
So
That's
effectively insignificant.
It's insignificant to the population as a whole. It's not insignificant that people are dying from it, but it's also not insignificant of the other things that people die from as well. You know, and in comparison, those numbers, those percentage numbers go way up when you get into high concentration areas where technically guns aren't allowed in certain blue areas.
Exactly. And the last thing I'm going to show you here is pertaining to that is this is from Mountain Mama on X. Today I swung my front door wide open and placed my Remington 3006 on the deck rail. I left 6 cartridges beside it, and then I left it alone and went about my business. While I was gone, the mailman delivered my mail, the neighbor across the street mowed his lawn, and a girl walked her dog down the street, and quite a few cars stopped at the stop sign near the front of my house. After about an hour, I checked on the gun. It was still sitting there, right where I had left it. It hadn't moved itself from the deck rail. I hadn't killed anyone.
Isn't it amazing?
With numerous opportunities it had presented to do so. In fact, it hadn't even loaded itself. Can you imagine my surprise with all the hype by the left, the media, about how dangerous guns and how they kill people? Either the media is wrong or I'm in possession of the laziest gun in the world. The United States is third in murders throughout the world, but if you take out just 4 cities, Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., and New Orleans, the United States is 4th from the bottom in the entire world for murders.
Right.
These 4 cities also have the toughest gun control laws in the U.S. All 4 of these cities are controlled by Democrats. It would be absurd to draw any conclusion from this data, correct? Well, I'm off to check on my spoons. I heard they're making people fat.
I think she needs to redo. I think she needs to redo this experiment. I think she needs to redo this experiment with a SIG. Might go. Might be a little different.
Might be.
That's hilarious.
It is.
That joke was for the gun.
That's
That joke was
excellent.
for the gun crowd out there in the SIG P230s in the world.
So,
like,
I feel like before we move on past some of the things that he said, I feel like there's one more that should be addressed. That is the one that's really coming up that everyone's wanting, that all these leftists are wanting to throw in people's faces right now, and that was when he was on that Jubilee show, and they want to bring up and they clip it out of context of him saying that the black community was better off before the civil rights movement. And
ooh.
This is really gaining, it's going viral right now. Now, it came out like a year ago whenever this was said, but once again, they're taking it out of context. And it wasn't him saying that, the black community was better off before the Civil Rights Act, and therefore the Civil Rights Act should have never happened. That wasn't what he was saying. He was saying statistically, before the left got a hold of the government and started implementing all of these welfare programs and stuff, encouraging black mothers to effectively marry themselves to the government instead of the men they were sleeping with, that prior to all of that, that's when you had fathers still in homes. You had more morality within the black community in that sense, and the black community was better off with less violence coming out of the black community,
and they held them accountable.
Exactly.
They held each other accountable. That's what he was
saying. So statistically, if you look at the numbers, yes, technically the black community was better off prior to the civil rights movement. That does not mean that the civil rights movement changed the black community. It was all of the fluff that the left threw in there to make the black community dependent upon the government.
The communists.
That's what affected the black community. So it's not saying that the civil rights movement should have never happened. It was saying that it was exploited in an effort to destroy the black community.
We covered about...
That's what he was saying.
We covered about 7 episodes of ROMA Nation's topics in this episode. That's why I knew this episode was going to be spicy.
So
let's go ahead.
About a lot of this.
We did. So if you guys want to know, we've got the uncensored series with the civil rights era. We've got JFK, MLK, RFK, and Malcolm X. We talked about the Second Amendment. We have an episode on that. We also have an episode. We got a couple. What else are we talking about? Oh, civil rights movement versus Black Lives Matter. That one was spicy. Yeah. So let's finish off with this.
It shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad. It was evil. But what happened? Something changed. They committed less crimes.
Maybe they were afraid. I mean, 4,000 Black men, women, and children were killed in violent lynch mobs.
That's your explanation. But I guess,
racial terror permeated American culture for hundreds of years.
Black America is worse than it has been
that
in the last
affected
80 years.
the generational psyche of an entire group of people?
Well, I'm sure it did. I'm not discounting that. This shows they were actually better in the 1940s.
Wait. Can I point out the flaw in what she just said?
Please.
He's saying there was less crime and they were better off statistically, and she was like, maybe you think they're afraid of what? To do crime? They're afraid to do crime? Is that's how that like where she injected that? Either A, she was just kind of like wanting to get her point across and it had nothing to do with what he was saying, which is the most likely one, or B, she's saying something that I don't think she realized she's saying. I don't know. How did you guys catch that? It's just, I'm just trying to point it out. Like that's
but
those were her words.
What I want to know, she said that
they're afraid
because
to do crime. In context,
afraid.
what Charlie was saying, they're afraid to do crime or
No,
afraid
no.
to do these other things. It's
Because
like,
the way
he's making argument for how better off they were, their morality, their stance, and their well-being, and she's over here like they're afraid. Why? What does that have anything to do with fear? You're going to be good because you're afraid.
But you saw that there was the girl there that had the issue.
You're
where
muted,
she
by
opened.
the way. AK, I can't hear you for some reason. Unless it was me.
I can hear him.
Can you hear me now? So
Can you not hear us? Or are you having issues hearing us? Because I can hear them just fine.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. I was like, why do you keep talking over me? No, but I was trying to figure out like what is she talking about? Because he's talking about the not just the quality of life. Yeah, there was racism back then. I get it. Yes, it happened. All right. I know it happened. I know that there were Jim Crow laws. I understand that. But not every single person back then agreed with those laws. They weren't politicians. They weren't the ones that could control that. Yeah, they could control it with their vote, but against who? Right? Like who was going to stand out back then and say, I actually think that this is wrong, because you would have been in the same position as them if you did, which is very similar to what's happening today. If you don't follow my steps, if you don't follow our ideology, then you're going to end up like them. It's the exact same thing.
I'm sorry, I missed all of that because my sound crapped out on me.
Yeah,
I had to reset.
Okay, you're gonna have to go hit rewind and watch it on YouTube, and then chime back in. But you need to play it on 1.5 speed so that way you can respond quickly. We got you on a time limit here.
That's funny, but yeah,
I'm kidding, Scrap Jaw. You don't have to actually do it.
I can do it. I can make it work.
That's funny. But yeah, so to close out the show, and with that clip, she was talking about 4,000 people died. Yeah, but what does that have to do with the family unit? That didn't scare away the family unit. It wasn't them. It wasn't that particular part. It wasn't Jim Crow that scared the family unit away. It wasn't, the police officers that were shooting out hoses that scared the family unit away. No, in fact, what it did was it brought that community even closer together, and then also brought in other communities to say, hey, enough is enough. Now, of course, when they brought in other communities, it also brought in a lot of bad issues, which Malcolm X completely called out back then. And I'm pretty sure between that and his issues with the Muslims are the reason for his demise. But
with the Nation of Islam.
Yeah, with the Nation of Islam, the whole nation. But either way, this is what he does, and this is what he was good at. And what happened? One selfish person came in. He didn't say, "I'm done speaking. I don't want to talk to you anymore." He didn't just say, "You shouldn't talk anymore." What he said was, or what his actions said, "You guys don't get to talk to him anymore." So this one individual decided for everybody else that you no longer get to listen to him. Who's the bad guy now?
Yep, that's right. That's right.
And that's what I have to say. Anyways, Donnie, thank you so much for joining us tonight, even though we ran way over time.
Right. This is what I love to do. This is what I love. This is what we do over on Talk About It. We all get together and we just talk about anything and everything as long as it's interesting, and our conversations will go on forever. So I appreciate you having me tonight. It's been a lot of fun, and you feel free to come on over and join me on Friday nights. We also incorporate the X Spaces, so if you don't want to be on camera but you want to join the conversation, all you got to do is hop on the X Space and you can join the conversation as well. So that's what we do.
And Scrapjaw, you got any last words?
I don't have as many words as I normally would. I'm trying to be a little bit more reverent about things in retrospect and in introspect alike. So, it's sad that I've slept on Charlie this long, but I think that's just another testament to what a lot of people are saying, is that his voice just got really loud. It got louder than it's ever been. There were people early on in Charlie's career that really believed in him, like Rush Limbaugh. I guess Rush Limbaugh was one of the original backers in the 7-figure range. Quietly, never talked about it. It was just like, no, I like this guy, and this. I don't trust or like a lot of the people that are in the circle that Charlie was in, but I don't think that's the point. I think the point is Charlie was so willing to talk to anybody and partner with people that he knew would have his back in his mission, which was talking to the youth, spreading the gospel, and de-escalating. Those are the things that I'm going to be taking forward from this, more so than, part of me wants to go out there and, and really just rail on how disgusting the left is. But I think this is a moment for us to be introspective and learn some things, and then come back to the culture war a little more sober,
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird to me, because it's a part of me goes, well, are you about to cuck out? Are you about to cuck out, man? And I'm like, no. This isn't being shaken and rattled by what the left did. It's being inspired by what Charlie Kirk did. And because I will never get to hear another new word out of his mouth from this day, I'm going to have to go back and listen to every word he's ever said in order to see what it was that really made him who he was. And I'm going to put money on the fact that it was his faith. That was the one thing he wanted to be remembered for. He said, I want to be remembered for my faith. Not just, all the other things that we talked about. He wants to be remembered for that. And I think he's pulled that off.
Yes.
Those are my words. Thank you, Charlie.
Well said. Well said. Well, you can find me at the real Roma _AK on X. And it's been one hell of a week. The only thing I'm going to say is, let's make next week better. All right. And to close the show out, there's a collage, because a lot of people, we talked about Charlie Kirk and how they misconstrued his words as rhetoric and as violence. The title of this show was "Words Are Violence." But we've already proven it right here that everything was taken out of context. We already knew that was going to be the case, but I wanted to make sure I got it on record. So I have a very beautiful thing to bring the show out. So let's take it away. You guys have a great night. Words of violence.
Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
This is what kicking the shit out of fascism looks like.
Try to prevent the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos that's been unleashed against us.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now living in a fascist dictatorship.
We are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator.
When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, "No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core."
Hustle in my veins, no rest, no dream, trying to make a way. Whole team gotta eat. No sleep, gotta keep going. No sleep till the world